That's funny.
Just time to wake up.
No, mine's on mute.
Mine died, so I don't have to worry about it.
You're the third owner of our house.
Trying to remember when.
You're stuck next to me, Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you. South Alabama since 2001, and then it was moved over here in 2007.
How was your ride along? Anything? Nothing? Boring as to be? Yeah, who did you go with? Dominic? Oh, Scott. Coriel? Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he was very
Yeah.
little bit of this, a little bit of that.
A lot of people do that, and that's
Wow.
really wise.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to do another.
Yeah. You know, I think you can do them once a month. Or something. I read somewhere, or they have a limit of.
I've always
it's
felt
in-
that way.
yeah. They have a limit of X amount per year or something.
There was a lady that was walking, and she just walked down the street. Somebody called on her, so,
Yeah.
hey, Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
They went over there, but they didn't find her.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I get that. No, it's good. I can see today. Looking at the
Oh,
agenda.
that's good.
Move it, or what do you mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good to know then. If you're done with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Penny. I'm sorry. No, that's okay. I can kind of see this week. Last week I couldn't remember.
So just so you guys know, I'm recording right here tonight because the air conditioner's on. And if they turn the air conditioner off, I'll move it farther.
I can grab one of those.
Possibly. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I don't know sign language though.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
You won't be able to hear.
All right, it's 7 o'clock. And I will call this meeting to order for the Village of Canton Hills. It's July 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Trustee Bodnar? Here. Trustee Gerson?
Here.
Trustee McKelvey?
Here.
Trustee Millette?
Present.
Trustee Morgan?
Here.
Trustee Muncy?
Present.
President Wonnicki?
Present. All right, rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you lead us? Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, we'll move on to public comment.
John O'Leary?
Can I say something? There's two here. What's the public comment here?
Oh, up here.
Can I?
No, I think she's going to, yeah. I'm sorry, John.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good.
Yeah, turn that one off.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. I'm here this evening because there's a lot of new faces on board. I'm the village president. First of all, for some of you who don't know who I am, my name is John O'Leary. I'm the chairman of the Public Works Committee. I've been on the committee and different capacities since the inception of the village. I'm here this evening because I want to impress upon the trustees in regards to a lot of programs that we're trying to implement in the Public Works Department in regards to roads. The roads, when the village was incorporated, the highway department was paying 2% of all the roads in the village. And with that type of percentage, it would take 50 years before you could get around to addressing any situation on any road, because 2% of roughly 100 miles is 2 miles. In the last year, we're looking at 3%, and we're trying to push that even further, even though the price of everything is coming up. And we're also trying to implement a maintenance program, so these roads that we do have in place, the new roads that we have put down, they can do maintenance on it, a rejuvenation program that will extend the life expectancy. And I just wanted to be here today, put a face that we are here at the Public Works Committee, and we're really advocating and hopeful that the Finance Committee, which has been doing a fine job for us, they've been able to get us some extra money because we've been relying basically on motor fuel tax money, which just doesn't do it. And we need to find resources within the village to try to get as much mileage paid, repaired, and rejuvenated to get caught up to where the roads in our village will be manageable. It's all I'm really here to impress upon all of you, because I know in the next couple of months, weeks, as a matter of fact, the village engineer will be coming to you with different projects, asking to spend some resources for programs that we feel are very beneficial to giving us good roads within the village. That's really all I wanted to say today, and hopefully that we're successful with the cooperation of all the board members and the village president and the finance committee. We can all get this job done.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Good evening.
many of you probably know that I was a trustee for 6 years, so I've sat in your seats. For all the comments from the public we've had over the years, but that's kind of how it goes. You do represent, whether you voted for it or not, the public of Camden Hills. So please take the comments that I'm about to give you guys in the spirit that they're going. I'm not angry. I'm not here for that. I'm here to listen, hopefully constructive criticism. Appreciate it. Thinking about it. 3 big sections. Budget concerns. Near and dear to my heart. We currently have approximately, in my opinion, 3 lawyers, only one that's budgeted for. That's a problem. That in the last month and a half, we have not seen a bill that's been presented by the parliamentary legal counsel sitting there today. So we have no transparency on current running costs on a per-hour basis. I know there's a retainer. That's not what I'm talking about. There's also a very large cost that goes with it. And I think the board needs to see where it's at. I think the finance committee needs to see where it's at, and the public needs to see where it's at. That's only fair. And it goes along with transparency. So many of you know that no financials have been provided to the board, the finance committee, or the public since the last fiscal year. That's a huge problem. You're aware of it. I've contacted some people directly on the board to voice my concerns, and I know they're working on it. But that's a long time to go without seeing it. Because you don't know where you're at the moment. That's the problem. And you're spending money. So I just a word of caution on that at the moment. So you see if it's where you're at. Okay. We also have 2 to 3 clerks. I'm not even sure where we're at anymore. One is budgeted. Okay. And a reminder, please, that the contract with the village attorneys doesn't allow outside board meetings and is prohibited other than the president or the village administrator as to officials contacting lawyers for consultations. Okay? You don't have the power to do that. Okay? And I didn't have the power to do it when I was a trustee either, so I'm not telling you anything that I didn't have to buy. I didn't always like it, but those are the rules. Okay? You don't have the authority to bind the village for any cost, any of you. So I would hope Bart's enforcing that as the president. Next, transparency and potential violations. Okay? This meeting may be questionable whether it was actually done within 48 hours. I don't know whether it was or wasn't, to be honest with you. It looks like it was really close. Just fair warning. Be careful, please. You're all comments. The agenda was changed apparently late either on Sunday or Monday. Again, you got the 48-hour rule. I know you're not always all involved in that situation, but it's important that you follow it to keep you guys clean and following the rules. One other point under transparency. I believe there's been some questionable conversations, more to do with numerous, believe it or not, officials having conversations outside of board meetings. You can't do that. That's a violation of law. So if 2 of you are talking, that's fine. You go beyond that, you're in violation. And I know there's a lot of new people and some existing people that have been on, and it's tempting when you're getting all together to do that. But you have to do it before the public. You have to do it openly. Please be careful of that. Concern. Potentially residents, non-village officials, contacting or having discussions with village lawyers or opposing lawyers over ongoing litigation. Huge no-no. Okay? Some of you may know what I'm referring to, some of you may not. I'm just saying, please be careful on that. That is inappropriate at best. Okay? So let your lawyers have a conversation. We'll talk to you in closed session. The way it needs to be done, I appreciate that continue. It's important to protect the village, is what you're looking for, especially in a litigation situation. Agenda items that may imply removal of personnel or recommendations for replacements may create a village liability. I warn you to be very careful on that. Okay? You're putting, it's not you they're putting in jeopardy, it's the village. And I appreciate you always kind of think that way about moves you're doing, and contemplating doing, that you're following the proper procedures and you know you're in the right. Okay? In addition to that, internal village personnel matters. Questionable disclosure of internal disciplinary matters released to the press that could cause legal ramifications. Such matters should remain internal personal issues and not be broadcasted to the press. I don't know if the press is here tonight, but it's inappropriate. Okay. Those belong to the village, handle it in the village, you don't contact the press. Okay? It's not only wrong, but it's inappropriate. Not sure of the transparency, but there's a respect in a confidential personal issue at best. So, again, take it in the spirit of that. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry. Okay? I've sat there. I know a lot of people have been through learning curves, but I'm not sure about something fast. That's all.
Sue Windland?
Hello. Thanks for your attention, but I'm afraid that Mike hit quite a few of the things that were on my list. I was a volunteer at the village for 14 years on the Community Relations Committee. And so some of the things he was just talking about, I'm very aware of because we were very much indoctrinated by the first president about what we could and couldn't do legally, which was a good thing. She put the fear of the blood into us. So we knew about some of those rules, but some of them are, that one about never more than two people conversing and being careful where you are. But anyway, so since Mike took an awful lot of what I was going to say, I'm up here because the last few weeks, or especially the last week, and it's kind of disturbing to find the Village of Campton Hills in the newspaper so often. And I also was wondering how they got their information and if someone actually wrote it for them, or if, and I'm not usually down on the press, but the last one on Sunday was so confusing to me. I read it once, I read it twice. I called a couple people. I said, "Did you read that, or have you seen it?" And of course, I'm the only one in the world that gets newspapers because I'm old and because I still hang on to one of them at least. But it seemed to be like a laundry list of a whole bunch of things, some of which I didn't think were appropriate to begin again, like about our police chief and things. So I had a question about who supplies the information. And I don't know, it seems like it must be sometimes an uncomfortable workplace if that's the atmosphere in our village hall. And it didn't used to be that way. Then I also wonder, and that's what really stood out to me, my background is more medical industry, being a nurse for many years. And I understand that certain positions, people have contracts, and obviously that's necessary. But in those contracts, there must be a lot of things about what can and cannot be done or said and how. And everyone knows about HIPAA. My God, HIPAA's everywhere. And I wondered how the particular names of some of our employees can hit the newspaper, especially when, according to your agendas and things, there's information pending in closed sessions. Now, if you're putting their names out in the newspapers, which I think is a HIPAA violation, then why do you have a closed session? Because you could ready put all that information out. I mean, not the specific reasons of whatever you're doing, but I thought that was very inappropriate and could get us in trouble because of lawsuits or whatever might be pending if you are violating HIPAA regulations. And the rest of the things, as I said, Mike actually hit quite a few of them, and I know that my time up here is limited, but I just hope that the new administration can tighten up things and do things a little different. You promised transparency. I don't want to see it all transparent in every newspaper article. I think there's some things that should stay in-house, at least until things are taken care of or are done the right way. And I don't think the general public is going to appreciate hearing about Campton Hills and their discrepancies all the time. So, thank you.
Charlie Bach?
I'm
also a past trustee. Hello, everyone. I missed. Anyway, I'd just like to say, first of all, that the remodeling of this building is spectacular, and this meeting room is really gorgeous, so I congratulate the people behind that who put it together. I'm here to talk about, not really to talk about it, but action item 6D. I think that Mike covered a lot very articulately. I'm not going to go into this. This has to do with the authorization to amend Resolution 2317, Section 2, to extend the term for Kenneth C. Shepro as special counsel until August 31, 2023. I would urge the board to vote against this. Mr. Shepro has become an embarrassment to the village. He is seen on tape online sleeping, and you may want to call it nodding off, but it's still sleeping. And I don't think that the village looks very good when your lawyer is sitting there sleeping during the meeting. So I'm just saying, I know he's got one more. I know that it's extended for one more meeting, but I really don't think it should be extended at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Hey, Barb?
Yes.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say something very briefly, kind of in the spirit of kind of what I'm feeling is I think this board can do better from an organization standpoint and try to work together and really be a winning team. And I know that's what everybody's intent up here is. And I know that's mine. And my prior life, I used to do a lot of talking about how to be together, team together. And that's what I would urge us to do. And I see us veering off into a little bit of a ad hoc committee, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, I think we're coming out just recently more like we're a little disorganized. We're calling special meetings, and sometimes they're necessary. I have no problem with that. But they seem to be called quickly without, sometimes I'm unaware of really what the agenda is going to be as a board member. This most recent meeting, I had the agenda, I was working on through the stuff that I had, and then I realized very late Sunday night that it was changed. I had not gotten a heads up or anything, and I just think we all can do better in getting those heads up. And I think we should follow the code, and we did not follow the code in terms of that agenda. All you have to do is read the village code. It clearly tells how to do that. I don't need to get into that, but I just urge us to get back to that. And I also think if we just drifted back to what I would call best practices, what we were doing is we would have a lot of discussion items on the agenda in the past, and we would discuss them. And then they may become an action item down the road, maybe the next meeting, maybe the meeting after that. But that deliberation that we had during that discussion process is critical for, I think, a democracy. And I think the public gets to see that before it ever gets to be an item that we vote on. And what seems to be happening now is items are appearing on the agenda that we're going to vote on. And we haven't had any prior deliberation, prior discussion, and we will have deliberation tonight on them, I know that. But it's better always to, kind of launch those sometimes slowly and have that important dialogue. So I would just urge us in the spirit of cooperation to go back to regular order and try to do the best we can to be a team and represent the village the best way we all can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Hello. I guess I signed the wrong sheet to speak.
Could you fill one out then, and so we have your name
Sure.
on record?
Is it the small one here?
The small one.
I signed it. I'll just send it on this.
You can fill it out after.
Yeah.
I guess I was just going to comment again on that article that appeared in the paper, airing personnel matters open to the public. If I were that individual, and if I knew that everything, that little argument that went on in an office was going to be released to the press, what kind of work environment does that create? I was just kind of appalled to see that hit the paper. And I'll fill this out.
Please fill that out. Okay, we will move on. We'll move on to the consent agenda. A, motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 2023, regular village board meeting. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, and we'll just a motion to pass the consent agenda. Yes. Okay. Any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Yes.
Trustee Burson?
Yeah, I'd like to pull the warrant list from the consent agenda.
Okay. Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Second by, is that Millette? Or
Morgan.
to Morgan? Okay. Okay, we need a vote? Okay. Okay, motion for consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Okay, moved by trustee Burson,
Second.
by trustee Morgan. Okay, any comments then? No. Right. All right, then moving on to oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, the roll call, please.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Vogner? Aye. Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Mazza?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, moving on to department reports. With It's not my evening, is it? I think it's all the comments, yeah. Okay. Motion for the warrant. I'll accept.
I just had a concern about one of the items. So,
Okay, motion. Okay, a motion on the floor. I'll entertain a motion and a second, correct? For the warrants?
President Woody,
Yes.
I move to approve consent, or excuse me, item 4C, motion to approve payment of bills for warrant list number 24-05.
Second.
Perfect. All right, discussion. Thank you.
Matt,
Yes?
I'm concerned over the warrant for fire safety consultants. We actually have numerous invoices listed for a total of $3,725. These are for plan reviews, pool review, hot tub review, and so forth. My understanding is that we have a contract with BNF Technical for work like this, and I have a question about who this organization is. I'm not aware that we have a contract with fire safety consultants, or why it is that we're doing business with them.
Well, right now, we do not have a contract with BNF. It was put on board and it was delayed, and we had some issues with BNF, and plan reviews were way backed up, and we had like 35 that were backed up, and we were getting a lot of calls from builders and people who wanted to do projects over the summer. So we sent some to fire safety consultants, and even when we did have a contract with BNF, it was not just I can't think of the term, but we can go with other contractors too. I mean, it's not a exclusive contract with them anyway, but we don't have one right now. So.
Yes.
My
understanding from discussions in June was that there was an agreement with B&F with respect to non-compete, and that Mr. Piccolo agreed to release Joanne Couchbrenner from enforcement of the non-compete agreement, but did not agree to release any other restrictions. And I may be wrong, I've been told that the gentleman doing the review is in fact a former employee of B&F, and would seem to be, therefore, somebody that the village has agreed they would not hire.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Shepro?
The non-compete was with regard to a temporary zoning person that we had. The contract with B&F is something separate. Any person that works for fire safety, I mean, I would not be aware of who that is. Like, my contract is fire safety, so.
Any more discussion? Mike, trustee?
So to clarify, we've used fire safety in the past as an overflow for VNF?
We have never done that before. We've never had this issue, but this year, like I said, we had just a great backup, and Chauvin especially, there were just a lot of homes that were in BNF and not getting reviewed. So we took action and got them reviewed.
Trustee?
I'd just like to clarify, it sounded like you said that you referred to your contract with fire safety. So do you believe that we have a contract with fire safety?
Actually, we don't have a contract with fire safety. Sorry.
Okay, any more discussion?
If I ask a question, thank you. These plan review fees with fire safety, these completely out of line with what you see from B&F or other contractors?
Not out of line, maybe a little higher than what we paid B&F.
So maybe a little higher just because we were utilizing somebody in an emergency situation. Are these plan fees typically are they going to be absorbed with the permit fees and fees that people are doing these projects? So it's not going to be village money at the end of the day. It's going to be the people that are performing the projects. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, we charge whatever the cost is. We add 40%, so it's not paid by the village.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay. Roll call or call a vote? Roll call.
Trustee Bogner? I'm sorry, Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Bogner?
Aye.
Trustee Gerson?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
And Trustee Warner?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 5, we have department reports. We have the police department June report and Officer Levin. Chief Levin.
Thanks. I'm hoping I don't need a microphone. I have a pretty loud voice, so I'm afraid if I speak into the microphone, I might get feedback. So I'm going to give everyone will get what your typical printout that you're used to getting for it. It's been a hectic 11 days to say the least, so I'm sort of prioritizing that, but you're going to get your verbal one right now. So the June police department report, there was 9 total accidents. Of those 9 accidents, 1 included an injury, 1 was a rollover. We had 196 calls for service. 73 citations were issued. Of those 73, 2 were for aggravated speeding, 35 or greater. Speeding remains a concern and focus. Isn't uncommon. Other agencies are the same, especially in the summertime. So officers are out there trying to enforce the speed and get people to slow down. We've had 5 arrests in June. 2 were for aggravated speeding. 1 was domestic battery. 1 was for felony possession of a controlled substance, 2 counts, and 2 counts with intent to deliver. That was on the same subject. Busy month for K-9, I know because I do it. So we had 5 K-9 call-outs or requests that included a missing person. We assisted South Elgin Police with the subject who fled on foot after pulling a gun on officers during a warrant service. We had a 1050 in town, a minor accident, where the K-9 was requested. During that search, the K-9 alerted on the vehicle. Xanax, Adderall, Flexerol, cannabis wax, scales, paraphernalia, and U.S. currency were all located. The vehicle and currency are currently in the asset forfeiture process. We provided 2 assists to North Central Narcotics, which is through the Illinois State Police. We do canine work for them. One of those cases involved 18 hours of surveillance and investigation. It concluded with a traffic stop where CODA assisted. He alerted on a free air sniff on the vehicle. That was to narcotics. The driver was a suspect in a drug-induced homicide. Located a firearm, ammunition, fentanyl, cocaine, heroin, cannabis, prescription pills, scale, and U.S. currency. Those are also in the asset forfeiture process through North Central Narcotics. I hosted the bicycle rodeo event. That was June 10th. We had approximately 70 participants. It included free food, bicycle helmets, bicycle registration, free giveaways, and an obstacle course. I want to thank the officers, SERV members, Citizen Police Academy alumni, and Bob Construction for volunteering their time and offering items for the event. As a reminder, we have National Night Out coming up. It's only a few weeks away. It'll be Tuesday, August 1st from 5 to 8 p.m. Last year, over 1,000 residents came out for the event. It tends to grow more each year. We try to add more exciting events. This year, the only change to it is we're moving it from a location on School Street. We're moving it to the church at Fox Mill and La Fox. Grateful for them and the HOA Association. It's gotten so big that we had to move it to that location to keep up with it. This year, and we get recognized every year for being one of the best national nights out in Kane County. This year, all 3 fire departments, Elburn, Pingree Grove, Fox River, will take part. Hands-on activities, including a fire safety house, fire pole. There will also be a staged car crash where they'll do a vehicle extrication. We have all kinds of stuff. Superior Airmet helicopter will be doing a landing. Magician with live animals, face painter, dunk tank, of course, canine CODA demonstration. Over 50 vendors, free hot dogs, chips, beverages, ice cream, and cotton candy. The entire event is free to the community. Again, huge thanks to the Community Relations Committee, especially Laura and Moore, for all they do, because they do a big part of putting it all together. I was contacted by Belle Graham School this week. CODA visits both schools, Wasco and Belle Graham, usually at least once every 2 weeks. The kids love them, whole community loves them. They asked if I would take part at least twice a week to go there for an hour in the morning with CODA, sort of to help the kids that are having bad days or issues at home, which I told them we will work out. I have no problem in doing that. CODA loves it. And finally, we did a canine demo and visit for Campton Open Space last Wednesday at Gray Rolls Farm for their fall critter camp. 30 children took part. We did the canine demonstration. Officer Cusick assisted me with it and took the bite from CODA. Thank you, Officer Cusick. And they got to pet CODA and take some photos. And I believe that is it. Good job.
Great report. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to the Treasurer's June report, and that's Tim Phillips.
Mine won't be quite as long. Just want to give you an update that the auditors were in the office last week. They were in for 3 days of field work. We had all that prepared by client schedules. They reviewed those, and I'm taking those back to their office, and if they have any follow-ups, they'll reach out. So we would anticipate the audit to be clean and available in the next couple of weeks.
Any questions for Tim? We're going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just really quick, the transition has been a few pain points. You know, there's always access to different accounts we have to deal with, and the mayor's been very helpful in getting us to transition those. We have had some communication from the budget committee. They obviously would like to see some financial reports sooner rather than later, and we're committed to the August data results for the committee. And I'm just working on our SOPs to tighten things up in the processes.
Thank you, Tim.
On behalf of the chairman for the finance committee, if we could get a copy of the audit financials, at least at the same time the board gets them.
Okay, moving along, we have the Building and Zoning June report. I believe Denise is going to cover that.
Yes. So again, the building has been very busy this summer. 214 permits were worked on in June. We issued, 58 were issued and paid for. 4 permits were completed, jobs completed, closed out, inspected, everything. And we had 60 permits were approved. So we keep hustling in the building department. People are doing a lot of additions and pools are being installed, and so we're busy.
Thank you, Denise. Next, we have President's Report. I hadn't planned on saying anything, but I'm a little surprised at some of the comments that I heard. We were really, this whole committee has worked really hard together to try to better our community and our village. Some of us are new, so we're, I'm new to municipal government, not to county government or township government, which was like a well-oiled machine, and that's what I want to bring to the village of Campton Hills. And I think I have a great backup. I have great trustees. I have ones that have a lot of experience, ones that are new, and we'll certainly try our best. And anytime anybody has any issues or questions, please just contact me or contact any of our trustees. Would be glad to help you. And that's it. All right, we'll move on to action items. Motion to approve the payout request number 1 to Geneva Construction Company for the 2023 Campton Hills resurfacing project in the amount of $1,533,797.86.
I so move.
Moved by Trustee Millette.
A second.
And second by Trustee Morgan. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Wogner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to B, motion to provide direction to the village engineer, H.R. Green, regarding the use of any additional funds available at the completion of the 2023 MFT road program. The expected amount available is between $100,000 and $150,000.
So moved. President Muncy.
Trustee Muncy moves.
Second.
Trustee McKelvey seconds. And I believe Scott's going to give us a presentation, correct?
I'll just go over some of the information that's in the packet that you all have. The roadway project is approximately 90 to 95% complete, so the $100 to $150,000 below bid is an estimate. To vary a little bit once we complete that work here within the next month. But I know between the village board in the past, the Public Works Committee, they've asked for updates. Can additional paving work be completed? Can it be added to this project? What amount is available and what will the process be? I'll add to the information that was in the packet in that with the amount of $100,000 to $150,000, I want to make a recommendation because I know one of the competing interests for budget money is, as was mentioned by Mr. Boveri, is pavement maintenance. And pavement rejuvenation is something that's been talked about. If there's funds available to include it within the budget. We are looking at, this information has been presented previously to the Public Works Committee, suggesting rejuvenating approximately 6 miles of roadways that have been paved in the previous several years. Ongoing maintenance work. That is somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000. Given that there's 100 to 150 expected available, we think that's a good way for the village to assure funding for that maintenance work for pavement rejuvenation, rather than trying to squeeze out one extra street, or something. So I just wanted to mention that in addition to what's in the packet, and then answer any questions.
Any questions for Scott?
Yes.
Trustee Muncy?
Thank you, Scott, for the information. And from the letter or memo that you sent, I was a little unclear as to the streets or based on the funding. I'm glad to hear that you think rejuvenating about 6 miles of roads would be a good idea. Has that been worked through with the township personnel and with the Public Works Committee to determine their thoughts on that? And because we're hearing from you, but I'd like to hear from them as well. If you're all in agreement, it sounds like it's probably a great idea.
I'll answer the question. They're both here. Yes, we have discussed this with Public Works. We have discussed it with the Highway District. They both feel that it's important maintenance process to perform. If there's any additional questions, but yeah, we are all in agreement in regards to that.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Roll call on that one?
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Vogler?
Aye.
Trustee Berson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Okay.
I
Motion
do have a
passes.
question, President Monique.
Sure.
We voted on the motion to provide direction. Are we going to provide direction now or decide what that direction is at a later date?
Scott, I think you make a recommendation.
If it's something the board is comfortable doing this evening with the concurrence, that's fine, or it could be done at a subsequent meeting. We already know which 6 miles of streets that we're looking at. We've already been in contact with the contractor that is available to do this work. So,
Trustee Millett.
So we need a specific proposal to act on. Is this, we all concur this is the direction, we see the proposal and act at the next meeting?
Just to point out, I think part of it was the direction the board asked before was should we take some of that money and use it toward adding, doing resurfacing more streets. And so that's what this is for, just direction. We don't want them to do that. We would rather use the money toward this rejuvenation. So that would, I would think that would be the direction that we can go to the Public Works Committee and go that direction. That would
be wonderful, yes.
Right, no action, just that.
All right, moving on to C, action item C, motion to approve Resolution R 2318, a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Village of Campton Hills and Impact Networking LLC for the leasing and maintenance of a printer copier. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Gerson,
I'll second it.
second by Trustee Morgan. Any discussion? Trustee Walker?
I've been through the printer sales process before, and one thing that I noticed when I was going through it that stuck out to me was that the cost of the printer was one thing, and then this long-term lease and service agreement. And then when I looked at it personally, I didn't see the value in the long-term lease and the service agreement. Rather, bought the printer outright and then just paid for service as we needed. I was just curious if you looked at that option also. It looked like all the quotes were mostly focused around the lease and the service agreements.
I sent out an email today, again, kind of describing the three options and the cost. And one of the issues, of course, if you purchase it, the technology if we own it in 5 years, when I talked to the salesperson, it's like you'll have a hard time maintaining it. We'll have a hard time getting toner. I mean, we have some old printers and the toner costs a fortune, so we don't even use them. So just to keep up with, technology, we feel it's the best option just to lease it. And then after 5 years, then of course the maintenance issues come up. So that's why we chose this option.
Yeah, I'm sure you looked into it, but like the printer itself ends up costing outright $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. And then over the course of the 5 years, $18,000 with the maintenance agreement, and gives you the options to move on to another maintenance agreement.
Right. But, the salesman I talked to said, they may not want to take they may not want to take the maintenance after 5 years because it's going to cost them more. So, and considering, you know, people change in 5 years, we might have different needs from the printer that we buy now, especially because we keep reducing the amount of printing we're doing. So,
I think the only point that I would make, like, to come away with is that over the course of that 5 years, we could buy 3 brand new printers for the cost of the service.
well, if we purchase one outright, it's $7,000 plus $200 a month to service it for the maintenance.
And wasn't it after the 5 years, it ended up being $18,000 for the overall cost?
Right, it is less than, otherwise we're talking for the fair market value lease, it's $21,000. However, when you consider the cost of maintenance may go up in that 5 years, then it could be more, you know. So, I mean, this printer we've had has been great, although today we had all kinds of issues with it, so I'm like, well, maybe it's time we get a new one.
So our office has used the maintenance agreement. That's something that you come out regularly and need services.
Oh, yeah.
We had found it was a great decision not to have the service agreement. It just keeps working.
No, they've been excellent. If we have any trouble, they come right out, you know, within 24 hours. It's fixed. And remember, we have a lot of different users, and you know, however they choose the machine.
Okay, Trustee Burson?
I just want to clarify the options, because if I understand correctly, what you're asking about, Trustee Bodner, is a 4th option, right? So we've been provided with 3 options, and all 3 of those options include bundled into it a monthly maintenance fee. And if I understand it correctly, you're inquiring about a 4th option, which is that we buy it outright, we don't pay a monthly maintenance fee, and we pay it if and when it breaks.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
And the consideration over whether we still want it in 5 years, how we maintain it in 5 years, or any of that doesn't really make any difference between now and the end of 5 years, right?
It sounds to me like it's better for them than it is for us.
Thank you.
It's better for the company selling the service agreement than it is for us.
I think if we went without a maintenance agreement and we started having issues, and you know, it's midnight and the police department needs a copier, or you know, it makes for a lot. In our situation with the government and with the many users we have, the maintenance agreement makes sense.
Okay, so the maintenance
and it
agreement
includes right, and it also includes we pay .005 for black and white copies and .05 for color, which is a very good price. It's something that, you know, is for us the right choice.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Trustee Millett? All right, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Bodnar?
Nay.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millett?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to D, authorization to amend resolution number 23-17, section 2, to extend the term for Kenneth C. Shepro as special counsel until August 31, 2023. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll propose the motion.
Motion, Trustee Morgan.
Yes.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Trustee Burson, discussion? Trustee McCallum?
Yeah, I've got a number of questions, and let me start with what's the cost of the extension? So maybe Mr. Shepard will, because there was no data saying what this extra month is going to cost. So question number 1, what's it going to cost the village?
I don't know because it depends on what I guess.
Okay, so ahead and repeat that.
Yeah. Basically, I don't have any specific tasks. Well, I have some that I'm working on that I've been asked to that are still in the process of completion. Whether those tasks will even take till August 31st, they may not. And of course, you know what some of them are. I don't think we can discuss them specifically now. Other assignments would depend on what I'm asked to do. There is perhaps going to be new boards of council that would reduce perhaps and more likely what I would be asked to do. So I don't know that I could be more specific than that. Everything else in the agreement as far, I've already been given a retainer, and there would be no additional retainer, but it would be based on the work actually done, subject to review.
Okay, thank you on that. So on the retainer, I think it was, you hired basically on May 2nd, the very first meeting, as a legislative attorney, and then at the May 16th meeting, it changed. And my question is, in that resolution, it talked about a retainer of $5,000, and I noticed that hit the warrants. I don't want to misquote it, but it was like a couple of weeks ago, and in the warrants, it was just basically said a retainer of $5,000. There was no breakout, no itemization. Can you tell the board what that $5,000 went for?
Well, initially it was a retainer, which by definition is an amount paid to either make sure that you have secured the services of the person and as essentially an advance payment. So I would say that it has been the work that I've done includes on several of the pending litigation matters, work done as requested by certain trustees, work done as requested by the village president, and obviously I will, I assume, render a invoice at some point that will provide itemized detail as to all of those things.
Well, yeah, my question then, okay, so you explained the $5,000, but then my question is, if we, decided not to extend it, how many billable hours are we going to get billed for?
Well, that's not going to depend on whether you extend it.
I understand that. Let's say the contract ends on August 3rd. You must have hours spent that you have not billed us for hours, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're flying on the. You're asking us to extend you, and you said you don't know how much that's going to cost because you don't know how much you're going to have to do. You also, I just asked you, what are the billable hours that if we end on August 3rd that you would send as a bill? Because you're not sending us any detail. I haven't seen any detail except the $5,000 bill, which we did pay for that. But yet, you just said there are other hours. I'd like to know how many of those hours are. You're not prepared to answer that tonight?
I am not prepared to answer that tonight, in part because those who know me know that I rarely bill all the hours anyway.
No, that's immaterial. Okay. Thank you for that answer. Then I just got one other comment. So I just want to remind this board how we got to where we got here. On May 2nd, we were asked to hire a special counsel, and we came out, and I remember because Mike and I were smiling at each other that night because of the way we worded it. Mike made a motion to that effect, but then we were corrected by our village attorney that said the code says you can either have a prosecutor, a village attorney, or you can have a legislative attorney, okay? And so we went with legislative attorney, which means you only then would work for the legislators, not for the village president, which would be us. So then 2 weeks later at our next...
That wasn't what you defined as the legislative attorney.
Okay. I'm not going to get into I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you that our village attorney pointed out, and the code clearly states what those 3 attorneys would be. I'm not saying we can't hire you on a special task. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying that night it was a legislative attorney because we couldn't use the word special counsel. So then on May 16th, let's jump forward, there was a resolution put together that we all voted on. And if you read that resolution, I'll tell you what I read. I read that you're a village attorney. Because all those elements in there is exactly what a village attorney does. I compared in the code what a village attorney says, I compared to what that resolution says, and they're exact. Now, I know you had some language in there that said, well, don't confuse this, because, you know, even though up there it seemed like a village attorney, it's not intent to replace the village attorney. I get all that language, but at the end of the day, I believe you've been a village attorney. And as I said that night, on the very first vote I voted no, the second time I voted no, and I'm going to recommend that this board votes no again, because what you're telling me is that we paid $5,000. We're still paying our other village attorney. We paid $5,000 a year. There's more bills coming. And when I asked you what the extra 31 days cost us, well, you don't know what that is. So I guess we should just cut the comp. I don't like to cut the comp. I represent the citizens of this village, and I cannot support, absolutely, extending this contract anymore. I think we've spent way too much money already. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
May I respond to your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. The language of the current resolution was not written by me. It was crafted by, I believe, the village, well, not I believe, by the village attorney. And after discussion with me and others, it was his recommendation that the language be changed. And that is what we voted on. So.
Okay, again, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I stated how I viewed that resolution. I'm a non-lawyer, but I'm also someone from a fiscal standpoint that says we shouldn't be spending money on duplicate work. So I vote no.
Any other comments? Trustee Muncy?
Thank you. Also, just, I think that was very well put, but in addition, we were asked for this to be a special case, to be for a limited amount of time, to be for 90 days, and I think some of us went along with that reluctantly because we were asked to. That is ending, that 90 days is ending. That's what was asked for. I have no idea why we would extend that further when we already have more than enough attorneys for our village. So I also will vote no on this.
Trustee Millett?
Thinking back to what Trustee McKellar was talking about, we've had legislative councils before. That's why we were smiling, because it was deja vu all over again. And I respect the request for council that you, President Brzezinski, would be comfortable with, or given the concerns expressed during the campaign about the performance of Montana Welch. So I thought this was until we got a new village attorney, and we've got a new village attorney also on motion. So I would not support extending Ken until I know exactly if it's how tight the scope would be, because I'm concerned based on what our constituents have said about having too many lawyers at this point. It seems like we'll be down to 2 if we had 2 or 4. But I would need more clarification before I could vote in favor. So perhaps maybe we could table and talk about it in exec and see what we're doing, and then come back out and make a decision. That'd be my preference, but if I have to vote right now, I'm going to vote no.
Can I make a motion to table it?
Yes. Make a motion to table it. Make a motion to postpone it to a particular time and date.
Trustee Person?
My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Shapiro, my understanding is that one of the primary responsibilities that President Winicki was looking to have you address was to help us get from Montana Welch to a new attorney. And we do in fact have some action items here related to a new law firm, but I'm not sure that they're going to go from 0 to 100 in a week. And so my interpretation of the reason this was here, and presently we haven't spoken about it, but my interpretation was But you were basically just asking for a little bit more time to complete that transition. Is that correct? Thank you.
If I may.
Yeah, Trustee Munson.
Thanks, President Linetti. That is not, maybe that's how the project evolved, but that's not how the project was first presented to us. It was presented to us as an attorney that was a trusted advocate, someone that they knew and they wanted their advice and counsel for a limited amount of time. If it's evolved into, as it sounds like what you're saying is Mr. Shepro is our village attorney. In the meantime, while we find a new village attorney, that's not what we had talked about originally at all, not what we had agreed to. Again, I'll stop there.
Well, any other Trustee
That
Person?
the characterization that Mr. Shepro is de facto village attorney was Trustee McElvee's. I don't think that's been Attorney Shepro's characterization. So I'm not sure that what we're talking about there. Attorney Shepro is not village. He's not de facto village attorney, and President Linetti asking for some additional time to complete the transition to the attorneys that we're considering. I'm not sure why that would seem overly.
Trustee Morgan?
Considering the certain situations that we have going on right now, and if you look at the next two action items, the next two action items show that we are changing to a new law firm. And I do feel that that it would be necessary with everything going on internally and externally to keep Mr. Shepro on until the 31st to make sure there is a smooth transition between the law firms.
Trustee McKelvey?
Yeah, I don't think we need Mr. Shepro as a shepherd between two law firms. I'd rather hire a priest. I don't understand what that means. We need someone to transition. Law firms are changed every day. They don't have a filler in between. As I said way back in that discussion, if we wanted to, if the will of this board is to change law firms, it's the will of this board to change law firms. But what you have is a dangling partisan. And what I mean by that is we have someone who is somewhat in the middle, but when you read both the resolution and what he has said he does, that is more than, that is a village attorney. If you recall, we agreed that even if we were to change law firms, that the current village attorney would stay in litigation. Right? Did we not agree on that? Did he continue litigation? When he was talking about his duties that he was working on, he said litigation. I never voted to have him work on litigation. I wanted the same law firm to stay with litigation from day one. So you are stretching the boundaries. You had a former trustee speak tonight and stood up and said, are any trustees speaking to the attorneys? We were always told when I was been on this board, we don't call the attorney. That there's a charge for that. There's a cost for that. And yet, he says he's talking to trustees. Have you ever talked to me, Mr. Shepro? Okay. And that's because I don't call you. All right. Because I know the meters run. Because I know the meters running for this village. And that's fine. That's fine. I haven't been one of them because I guess I'm old school because, I don't feel that it's my job to be talking to the attorney. I don't want to run up the bill any more than this has. I think to delay this vote, to me, to table it, to talk more in executive session about it, to me is a waste of time. If you want to extend it for 30 days, extend it for 30 days. Let's call the question and vote.
Trustee McKelvey, you call the question?
Yeah, I'll call. Yes, I'll call the question.
Okay. Roll call?
Trustee Burson, or sorry, Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
No.
Trustee McElvey?
No.
Trustee Millette?
Nay.
Trustee Muncy?
Nay.
Okay. Motion fails. All right.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to action item E. We have a motion to advise and consent to the village president appointment of Carmen Forte of Klein Thornton Jenkins Limited as village attorney. I'll entertain a motion.
Also,
Moved by trustee Morgan, second by trustee Millette. Any discussion? Trustee Muncy?
Thank you, President Wendy. I have a couple of questions. I think E and F, well, obviously they're intertwined. My first question is why we would appoint one specific attorney and not a firm as village attorney? Because if that one specific person was then unavailable or needed assistance, it's my understanding that we wouldn't have access to the other attorneys in the firm. So typically, you appoint a firm, not just one attorney. Is there someone here that can answer that?
Yeah, I'm going to refer to Attorney Sheffro, and actually F is, we are going to appoint the entire law firm, but go ahead.
There's a difference between having the office of village attorney and the job, if you will, of attorneys for the village. I would agree that if you were hiring attorneys for the village, you could hire an individual, or you customarily might hire a law firm. But the state statute provides for the appointment of an officer, not a group of officers. You can only have a corporeal person to be an officer any more than you could have an entity become village president. So basically, I think it's well established that, again, the officer has to be a person and one person. Now, if you had something that said you could have two village attorneys, then perhaps
You've answered the question. Yeah. And it sounds like this was your interpretation, your idea, correct? The people that put this agenda together, did they consult with you to come up with the appointment of one person? Is that how this got on here?
Well,
it's really just a yes or no question.
You're asking for a conversation that will be
Okay, thanks. I think our current village attorney is not in agreement with you. Could we give him the microphone as well? And I have one more question after this, President Baker, if you don't mind.
I would just say it is incorrect that if you were to appoint the proper motion, you can appoint an individual, but you also can appoint a law firm. And in most situations, a law firm is appointed as the village attorney. And it's the law firm, not an individual. Whereas Montana Welch, which we talk about, is the village attorney. Tom Condon is not the village attorney, it's Montana Welch that's the village attorney. So the appropriate motion would be to have Klein Thornton. If you were to have a motion, would be more practical to have.
Thank you. The second question, or group of questions, if you will, I'm not sure I need the answer to, but this, as I said, E and F are intertwined, and please don't take this as any assessment of Klein Thornton Jenkins, Carmen Forte, any other attorneys there at all. This has nothing to do with that at all. It's really just how these are being motioned up and how this process is working on our end. So the second one is in agreement with the firm to provide legal services. It doesn't say to be the village attorney, so I'm a little confused at that. I'm also confused at why we're bypassing the RFQ process that we approved that would have made it more, made it public, just why we were doing these things. And we have an independent investigation with this firm, hiring them as a village attorney. Is that, and I asked a question about that already, is that appropriate? But the last thing is, there's no agreement in the packet. What are we agreeing to? The resolution says we're going to agree to enter into an agreement, but there's no agreement in here. I don't know how much they would charge. I don't know what the terms are. There's nothing in here that I can agree to. So at this point, I would recommend at something we have to table ENF because we need more information in order to be able to do it.
Okay, this is one of those things where lawyers just annoy me. Sorry. I mean, I've been in towns where a person from a firm was appointed. Tom Baer was the village attorney for Clarendon Hills while he worked for Klein Thornton Jenkins. He had a commission certificate. So, I mean, it's one of those things that it probably could be done either way. Trustee Muncie's point is, yeah, we need to see the contract. That was going to be my comment on either E or F. We generally don't approve stuff without seeing a contract.
Hey, Barb.
Yes,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just wanted to echo, one was the contract, because I don't know what I'm voting on. It's like voting on an extension, not knowing what it's going to cost. I don't know what I'm voting on. So I'm not opposed to a different law firm. I think Mr. Muncie's got it right. I think both of these should be tabled at some point in the future where we get the data. Usually when you get a packet and there's something like that to execute, you've got all the data and the backup right there so that when we're getting prepared for the meeting, we can read it and make an intelligent decision. I can't make that decision tonight.
Attorney Shepherd?
Well, okay, as is obvious, the lawyers are giving you a different opinion. And my advice would be is that in that case, you should follow, whether I agree with it or not, my advice would be is that you should follow the advice of your current attorney. However, I will say that by state statute, the village attorney is an appointment of the president, and you can't change your village code to say something different. If you do, it's not valid. But having said that, until you have appointed either someone, a new attorney, or you have removed the attorney, which you also have the right to do, theoretically, somebody is the village attorney. And I've stated my opinion, council stated his opinion. But you also have counsel for the village, whether or not they are the village attorney or not. But Trustee Millett says, I find the usual pattern is that an individual is appointed to the office of village attorney. Not every village has a village attorney. Many of them retain counsel that you're not required to have that. That's an optional office under the Illinois Municipal Code. For example, a village attorney would be entitled, if agreed, to receive IMRF benefits and so forth, whereas an outside contractor that might be hired as counsel is not entitled to receive benefits. All right, we don't want to get deep into the weeds. You might perhaps, well, I'm not going to, it's up to the board to decide not only what they want to do, is to what degree they want to discuss it, vote on it, table it, whatever.
Okay, Trustee Millett.
And to echo what Trustee McKellar said, I have no problem with the firm. I've obviously been aware of their existence for quite some time and not displeased that they finally are coming across the river, as they jokingly said they never would. But I just need to see what the engagement letter, what it is before I vote for it. So if we have it, I mean, so.
They are our law firm doing the current evaluation or investigation of the office. So it is my appointment, and they're doing just a remarkable job, a perfect job, and it is my appointment, so I'd like to hear this one.
Yeah, just to make a comment. Again, back to my opening comment, wondering about democracy and deliberation. Way back when at the very first meeting on May 2nd, we had this discussion around village attorneys, etc. And I think I said that night that I have no problem with this board deciding whoever they go with. That's the decision of this board. But we needed deliberation. So one of the things I thought we deliberated around was an RFQ, right? We were going to go out, test the waters for different firms. And I don't know if we did that. I have not seen that report back. I have not had a deliberation around that. And again, I have nothing against this law firm whatsoever. The only second point I would make is, once, we have currently an independent evaluation or investigation going on by this firm that we may hire. And I think once you hire them, I think you've lost that independence. I think it shades it. I think it absolutely does not make it no longer independent, because they're now also our village attorney. I think it's a mistake. I think let that run its course, and then fine. I just think it's premature. That's my viewpoint. Thanks.
All right, any more discussion? As far as the RFQ goes, that was my choice to not send out the RFQ. I wanted to move forward with Kleinborg and Jenkins, and I don't know where to go from here. Okay, call the roll.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Millette? Trustee Bodnar?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
No.
Trustee Muncy?
No.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And we'll get you that backup information, I promise.
Say that again, Barbara. Sorry.
We'll get you that backup information.
Okay.
I believe we have it here, and we'll make copies of it and pass
All right,
it.
I have a question now. I've got another question, if I may. So obviously, this is effective now, immediately?
Yes.
Okay, then I have another follow-up question. What happens to the existing litigation that we have?
We have the new attorneys.
So the new attorney is going to take over existing litigation, and we're basically going to start from ground zero?
No.
I'm not asking you.
I agree with Attorney Sheffield. That is closed session. We can talk about it.
I don't see why that's a closed session. I want to know if the intent is to have a new firm take over all litigation. That is my question, because we were going to get there is going to be some things going on in closed session that we need some updates on. This village attorney that we have or had was going to, I think, do that updating. So now he's not going to do the updating?
It's up to him.
But he's no longer the village attorney.
Well, we can invite, this is regarding a court case.
There's ongoing litigation, but
Yeah.
our position is we're no longer village attorney, and therefore
Speak with the mic. Can't hear you.
But so, and you can't really. We are no longer the village attorneys. We no longer have an attorney-client relationship for purposes of here.
Well, what if I invite you into executive session to update us on this last piece of litigation, and then,
We'd be willing to participate.
Okay.
To make the transition easy as possible, or
Thank you.
I could
That's
work
what
with
we're-
Attorney Forte and have conversations with him.
There we go.
Now, Montana Welsh does not intend to be obstructionist. It's just that
Okay.
we'd like to follow the letter of the law.
All right, that's what we're looking for. That would be great. Okay. All right, action item F, motion to approve resolution R23-19, a resolution entering into an agreement with attorneys Kleinthorpe and Jenkins Limited to provide legal services. Motion, please.
So moved.
So moved by trustee Burson, second by
I second.
trustee Morgan. Any discussion? We've had plenty of discussion. But, any discussion?
President Wynn?
Yes?
Just to reiterate the fact that, I'm not against the appointment of any attorney from Kleinthorpe or Jenkins or the firm as a whole. This is not to be characterized as that. What it is to be characterized as we don't have an agreement. I'm sorry, I have to vote no on this because I can't vote on the agreement I have.
All All right, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Vogler?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Nay.
Trustee Millet? Trustee Muncy?
Nay.
President Wodnicki?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on. Motion to go into closed session for, let's see, to discuss one of the following matters: appointments, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or contractors, litigation that is filed and pending or is probable or imminent, and pursuant to 5 Illinois CS 122, to discuss the appointment of legal counsel for the public body. Okay, motion. Trustee Millette?
Second.
Second by Trustee Burson. Roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Vogler?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Okay, move into closed session.
That's why the public voted for Barb.